Hey there, it's Dave for Hot Hardware, and today we're going to take another look at the Dell XPS 15, which, as you may know, is one of the most highly regarded 15-inch notebooks on the market currently, both in terms of its performance and its premium build quality. But Dell has revamped the machine over the years a number of times with new platform technologies, and this time around, we're going to take a look at Dell's XPS 15, which is now powered by Intel's 7th generation Kaby Lake processor technology, and it also has on board a new NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1050 graphics engine. So we figured we'd look at this from a little bit different angle for you and answer the question, does Dell's XPS 15 really have game? Let's take a look. Dell's XPS 15 hasn't changed much physically with this revision, and that's generally a very good thing. The same sleek lines are here, that sweet matte finished and hatched carbon fiber composite palm rest area, its high-quality CNC machined aluminum lid, and chiclet-style keyboard with spacious trackpad. The keyboard has good rigidity and key travel, but maybe a tweak Dell could consider in the future iteration would be shaping the keys to be a bit more forgiving of missed strokes, and for a bit more comfort in general. Regardless, with a small bit of learning curve, we like the XPS 15 typing deck just fine. And though not seen in our early revision here, the new XPS 15 does come with a fingerprint reader for quick, secure Windows Hello login. And you still get the XPS 15's generous assortment of I/O port options with a headset jack, Thunderbolt 3 port, full-size HDMI output, USB 3 with power share, and an AC power port on the left side. While on the right edge, Dell offers the same Kensington lock slot, battery gauge button, and indicator LED strip, another USB 3 port with power share, and an SD card slot. Literally, except for that fingerprint reader, nothing mechanical or I/O option-wise has been changed here. The other thing that hasn't changed here, thankfully, is the XPS 15's stunning 15-inch Infinity Edge display with its super thin bezel. Yes, this keeps the onboard webcam located at the bottom left of the display, but I personally have no problem making the trade-off in exchange for this gorgeous panel setup, possibly attaching a USB webcam if I really need my beauty shots at the proper angle. The thin bezel of Dell's Infinity Edge display allows the XPS 15, like previous versions, to land in a footprint the size of an average 14-inch laptop. And speaking of beauty shots and angles, viewing angles with this panel are top-notch as well. Colors are balanced and vibrant with its 350 nits panel that comes in both Full HD 1080p options for a bit better battery life, as well as a 4K ultra-sharp version, if you're a real pixel and real estate snob. But let's not drone on too much with minutia. You came here to learn how Dell's new Kaby Lake and GeForce GTX 1050 infused XPS 15 handles under gaming workloads. First, let's get a few specs out of the way so you know what we're working with. The XPS 15 model 9560 we're testing here is powered by a 7th gen Intel Core i7 7700HQ quad-core processor with boost to 3.8 GHz. Also on board is an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1050 graphics engine with 4 GB of GDDR5 memory. Finally, this is all backed up with 16 GB of DDR4 2400 MHz memory and a 512 GB PCI Express NVMe solid-state drive. Incidentally, that memory is expandable to 32 GB if you would like. We'll be game testing on the 4K Infinity Edge Touch display, but gaming at native resolution really isn't an option with the kind of horsepower we're working with here. However, Dell's display does a really nice job of downscaling at 1080p, and that's where we'll be game testing at. Now then, first up, synthetics, with 3D Mark Firestrike and Time Spy. FutureMark designed 3D Mark Firestrike for desktop PCs, but many of today's gaming laptops have the chops to take on its high-resolution textures, tessellation, and other effects of the test. Here, Dell's XPS 15 holds its own versus actual gaming laptop models from Dell, Asus, MSI, and HP, versus previous generation mobile GPUs like the popular GeForce GTX 960. The GeForce GTX 1050 on board the XPS 15 is significantly faster. However, it didn't quite catch the GTX 965 in Dell's Alienware 13 model, but more on this later. 3D Mark Time Spy looks specifically at DX12 performance and is an equally rigorous test for PCs of all kinds, maybe more so in some respects. It's a fairly new benchmark, so we have fewer performance reference points to look at. However, here the XPS 15 does bring up the rear, though at least it's in the hunt. Let's look at some real games next. Monolith's surprisingly fun orc-slaying title, Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, delivers a ton of visual fidelity even at the lowest quality settings. So to maximize the eye candy on the Dell XPS 15, we ran the game's high-quality benchmark loop at a couple of resolutions. All of the game's graphics-related options were enabled, along with FXAA and camera blur. Here, the XPS 15 still drops in the lower quadrant of our results versus the other gaming laptops. However, it's able to actually outpace Dell's own Alienware 13 with the previous generation GeForce GTX 965M GPU, scoring a buttery 60 frames per second or so at FHD 1080p resolutions. Incidentally, Alienware has revamped the AW13 with a GeForce GTX 1060, and as you can see, the results of that are at the top of our chart here. Rise of the Tomb Raider has hit the PC platform as an excellent Xbox port thanks to Nix's software. It's a competent console-to-PC port update with many graphic settings and effects to tweak and dial to your particular tastes and system capability. Some of the rendering and effects features include ambient occlusion, depth of field, dynamic foliage, bloom shader effects, and tessellation. Its visuals are pretty great, and as you can see here again at 1080p with high image quality settings, we are treated to 43 frames per second of performance and total playability on the XPS 15. Here again, the XPS 15 is able to outpace previous generation Alienware 13 performance with a GeForce GTX 965M, but just by a hair this time. And it hangs just fine with the other powerful gaming notebooks in our test database. Finally, Gears of War 4 is a great-looking game that makes impressive use of Epic Games' Unreal Engine 4 and its rich visual effects. Those playing on the PC platform have over 30 graphic settings at their disposal. Hashtag PC Master Race for hands-on fine-tuning. Here we are testing the high image quality preset at 1080p resolution, and as you can see, Dell's XPS 15 with its NVIDIA GeForce GTX mobile graphics plant handles it just fine at 51 frames per second and can even scale to 1440p with playable frame rates. However, for serious gaming chops in Gears 4, the Alienware 13 R3 with GeForce GTX 1060 chalks up close to double the performance. And that about wraps up our little gaming test drive with Dell's new XPS 15 with Intel Kaby Lake and NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1050. Drop in a quick thumbs up if you like this little show and tell, but be sure to check out our full review of the machine coming to HotHardware.com in a matter of days. Hit that subscribe button as well for more tech product reviews, event coverage, and our oh-so-nerdy 2.5 Geeks webcast. It's Dave for Hot Hardware with the 2017 Dell XPS 15 9560 laptop. We hope to see you again soon, and thanks very much for stopping by.